Meeting. Councillor Mann has apologised, and as most of you know, she's had to step down from her role as the lead member for climate and biodiversity. She now has a full-time role doing what she's been wanting to do for many, many years. Her time is hers now, and it's her job that she's wanted. So sadly, she's had to step down from the hub because she's just not able to give it the commitment that it deserves. So I've asked Councillor West to step into place, which he's kindly accepted. He is here around the table today. He will be able to take part in debates. However, Chris won't be able to vote because we need to ratify Chris's formal uplift to the hub through full council on the 10th of, uplifted from the backbenches, yeah. So he can be formally ratified at the meeting on the 10th of December. So, yes, so welcome, Chris. I hope you get as much pleasure out of the role as Councillor Mann did. Ursula loved her role, so let's hope you're going to be the same.
I won't be dancing through the middle of Tavistock, though. She did at the Gay Pride.
She did actually, didn't she? She did dance through the streets.
I think that's it. It's part and parcel of it. Sorry, Chris.
Yeah. Okay, right. Councillor Edmonds, please.
Chair, can I be excused briefly? I've got to make a really important phone call. I'm really sorry.
Please don't apologise. Thank you very much, Chris. Right, everyone, let's get to the main agenda now. So, apologies for absence, please, Mr. White.
Thank you, Leader. Good afternoon, members. We have an apology, as previously mentioned, from Councillor Mann. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. Declarations of interest. Everybody knows the rules. If anything comes up, should it be an interest, please declare. Thank you. So, items requiring urgent attention. I don't have any, do I, Mr. White?
There are none. Thank you, Leader.
No, thank you, Chief Exec. Right, if we may confirm the minutes from pages 1 to 6 of your agendas from the meeting held on the 24th of September. I will go through page by page as normal. Page 1, page 2, page 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, is everybody happy that I sign those minutes at the end of this meeting? Yep, thank you very much. Right, we have no public questions. At least I don't think we do. I recognise everybody. Right, thank you. So now we will move on to the Hub Forward plan. As we all know, this is an extra meeting today because the November meeting was overloaded. October meeting was in September, whatever. So this is an extra hub meeting. So does anybody have any queries as to where we are on the forward plan? Are you all able to agree that within your portfolios that you will make the dates, etc.? Yep, everyone's okay with that? That's great. Oh golly, and we're now going through to March as well. Scary, isn't it? Right. So now we'll move to item 7. So working for our communities, the annual report, which is pages 15 to 38 on your agenda, and that's me. So, with the forward plan, we're asking us to endorse the report 23-24 and to agree to the publication of the report as a public record of those achievements. So are you going to talk to this? Neil, oh, he's there. Mr. Hawke, welcome, please, to the meeting. And I'll let you go through, because I don't think we've got any changes.
Thank you, Leader. So, first to say to Hub members, this report is in front of you slightly later than we would have wanted, but we had matters of national elections and various other things that scuppered the timeline somewhat. So typically the Hub Committee would see the annual report about May, June time. nonetheless, I think it's still a really important document in terms of setting out the really positive progress of the first year of this council term. The deliverables within the plan were clearly the previous council plan, the corporate strategy. But I think it's a really positive demonstration of the action that's taken across the priority areas, including supporting action in terms of climate change and biodiversity loss. Our operational service performance shows a continued positive trajectory in terms of how we're performing. And yeah, I mean, just really a document that's intended to be a public record as per the recommendation. We will be subject to agreement of Hub Committee today, promoting it through our residents' newsletter, which goes out every couple of weeks, and to our town and parish councils, because it's intended to be easy to read so that people can see what we've been up to all year, rather than wading through lots of performance reports that we all consider through committee meetings. So hopefully a user-friendly document that sets out just some of the key activities of the council in the period to 31st of March 2024. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hawke, and I owe you a big thank you for this report and for the other portfolio holders for your input into your sections of the report. Does anybody, thank you, Councillor Moody.
Leader, I really welcome this report. Thank you very much for a really good job. Could I just say one additional thing, which is working for our communities? I think we should also remember that we're working with our communities as well as part of this whole report. But very well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions or comments to make? Did Councillor Edmonds have anything, Councillor Jury? No? Okay. Right, so I will move the recommendations, please. That's on page 15. And that is that the Hub Committee endorses the annual report 23-24 as set out at Appendix A, and 2, agrees to the publication of the annual report as a public record of those achievements. May I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second, Leader.
Any debate, anybody? No? All those in favour, please.
That's unanimous. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much indeed. Right, if we move now to pages 39. This is the housing update, the report of the Devon Housing Commission and the response of the council. And Mr. Hawke and Mrs. Blake are swapping seats. Thank you, Mrs. Blake. And I will pass this over to Councillor Renders.
Good afternoon, everybody. Yes, this report concerns the recently published report of the Housing Commission and requests that its findings are endorsed. The report also provides a summary on the work the Council is already doing and has been since our declaration of the housing crisis in 2022, and gives an indication where we are well aligned and where there may or might be opportunities to use the report to further lobby or work across Devon. The next steps are for this to feed into our refreshed housing strategy and council plan action plan, and further shape our priorities for a new version of the housing strategy in 2026, for which work will begin next summer. As you mentioned, we have Mrs. Blake here with us for any questions, but it's a straightforward endorsement today. Thank you.
Does anybody have any? Oh, sorry, Mrs. Blake, would you like to say anything? No. I will just say that this housing report has taken a long time to get to where we are. It is something that we need to use as a document for us as a council within the recommendations that have been set out and the ones that Mrs. Blake has been able to adapt, etc., to fit in with West Devon and our housing. And to note that, you know, this is going to go to the Housing Advisory Group. Last week, just for your information, the housing report with Matt Dodd, who came and did a presentation to us, and who is the author of this document, or the main author, we did a presentation to DALC, the Devon Association of Local Councils, and we had, I think there was over 30 parish councillors on the line, which was really good. And we had lots of interesting questions that were asked. So we have been able to share the document right down to our lowest tier. It's the one a bit higher that we're trying to persuade to adopt more of it and to put some money into it, which would be good. So, Councillor Renders, would you like to do your recommendations, please? They're on the screen,
They're on the screen, as you can see. Do you want me to say it?
No, they're longer than mine.
Okay.
I'll let
One
people
that we
read.
endorsed the report of the Devon Housing Commission as set out in Appendix A, and 2, note the initial West Devon response as set out at Appendix B, and share with the Devon Housing Task Force, and also work with the Housing Advisory Group to utilise the report through refreshed priorities for the Council Plan and the Housing Strategy. Can I have a second, please?
Happy to second. Does anybody have any debate, comments or anything they wish to make on this report? No? May I see a vote then? No, we're only noting, aren't we? Noting. Oh no, we are endorsing. Can we have a vote then, please?
That is unanimous for the 2 recommendations. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. Right, Mrs. Blake is now going to swap with Mrs. Hotchkiss. I'm sorry, this feels a bit like a sprint with these people changing seats. It's all the same seat, yes. Nobody's bottom is going to get cold. It is. We do need music. Yeah. So this one is the cost of living update, and I'm on the wrong page. We'll just get me back. With lots of recommendations. So the cost of living update and plans for household support fund allocation. Councillor Elliott, are you able to introduce, please?
Yes, thank you very much, Leader. So I'm really pleased to be able to introduce this paper. It's a very detailed paper, and I think that the level of detail in it speaks to the hard work that's been put in by Jenny Hotchkiss and her team. And in some ways, this extends the work that we've done over the past few years with the Household Support Fund. People around the table may well be aware that this originally comes from central government. This time, £5 million has been given to Devon County Council, and they then trickle down sections of that funding for us to spend as a borough. So the overall figure that we've got is just over £151,000. This is the 6th tranche of the Household Support Fund, and we've gained a lot in experience over the last few years in how we allocate this. It's a statutory duty for us to make sure that some of this fund is available for open application, and we work really closely with partners like Citizens Advice to make sure that we're targeting those most in need. But having the fund open for applications requires people to come forward and put quite a lot of effort into having a means test done, filling in forms, and it also means that the staff at West Devon, there's quite a big administrative overload. So what we've tried to do here is to put a lot of the work in ahead of time to identify those of our residents who are most in need of this funding. And we're also trying to be cognizant of the external environment and the fact that the winter fuel allowance is now only available for those who are entitled to pension credit. I won't get bogged down in the figures, but I'm sure people around the table are aware of just how low pension credit is, just how low your income has to be now for you to get the standard £200 winter fuel allowance, or £300 if you're older. So to come to the real sort of nub of this paper, I think the best thing is for members to look at table in paragraph 3.4, which is on page 6 and 7 of the new paper. There was a paper circulated in error and then that was updated. And this table in paragraph 3.4 really encapsulates the work that's been done here, so that just over half of the total fund, so 82,300 altogether, is going to be directly allocated to 8 groups of our residents who we've determined to be in greatest need. And each of those groups, well, 7 of those groups will get a standard £200 payout. And then we've got 11 care leavers where we have a sort of parental responsibility for them, and they're going to be each given £500. So in total, there'll be 395 households that we can directly give funding to. Very modest funding, but hopefully just to ease the cost of living a little over the coming months. So that means that they won't need to have the burden of filling in forms. But we've tried to create a very balanced approach in this paper. So just over 82,000 is going to be allocated directly. And then that leaves 69,000, so almost half of the total, available for open applications. So once again, we'll be learning from past experience, working closely with partners, and we've actually got a sort of outreach going on at the moment as well in partnership with Devon Libraries to make sure that people are aware of what they're entitled to, what they can apply to from us, but also what they're entitled to in terms of pension credit. So there's a lot of work that's gone on behind this paper, this quite detailed paper. And I'll just come to the final part of it, which is just to alert members that we now also have a dedicated cost of living officer within the council. Like everyone across the borough, we're trying to make a little go a long way. So it's not a whole person, it's a part-time, it's a part of an FTE and shared, of course, with South Hams. But we do have that extra support to do some liaison work and to do some direct work with residents. So hopefully that gives members a good overview of what we're doing here. And just to sort of finish with the good news that this is 6 months of funding, but we do know that there's going to be another year's worth of funding, at least. We've heard that from central government. And once again, we'll be learning from our experience and trying to improve each time in terms of the efficiency with which we deliver these really important funds to residents across the borough. Thank you.
I don't think you need to add anything to you, Jenny.
Thank you, Leader. It was just to say that we've also, the team have arranged for DWP to be in attendance at the library sessions as well. So I think that's going to be really helpful in terms of the, you know, kind of the wider support environment.
You know, I've just thought of another place that goes quite regularly, and that's the country bus that picks up people around Tavistock and takes them to appointments and things like that, that we could get in touch with them. Tavistock Country Bus. I'll speak to you after the meeting because I know who drives the bus. It surprised me that she does. Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Jury, please.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm very grateful for the particular mention about the winter fuel allowance and the payments that are being made there. But there was something in the report that I didn't quite understand, and I just wonder whether you might be able to explain it to me. In item 4.4 of the revised report, it talks about modelling based on £15, £18 and £20 a week above the low income threshold, and that would enable an estimated additional 23 single pension households to be supported. I think in the previous report the figure was something like 34, but that's not mentioned in this report. So is that 57 is the total? But in the table further up, it talks about single pensioner households being 185 that have been supported. which sounds like a much better figure to me, if that's the one. Am I misunderstanding the figures somewhere?
No, I don't think you are. So the original report was just based on a proposal in relation to pensioner households. We then reworked those figures. So initially we were reporting on pensioner households in their totality. We then split those off between single pensioner households and couple pensioner households, which is why we have that difference.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I think in essence, it's really good news if you look at the single pensioner households and the couple households. You're talking in excess of 270 households that we're giving assistance to, which I think is brilliant and excellent given the circumstances that people are now finding themselves in. From your experience, and this may be a difficult question to answer, is that indicative of the demand that there might be following removal of the winter fuel allowance, or are there more requests coming forward which we are unable to help with at the moment? And I appreciate that might be difficult to answer.
I think it's fair to say that we would want to support more people if we possibly can do. Alongside this, DWP have written out to 81 households from their data in West Devon that they've identified as being entitled to pension credit and the winter fuel payment. So I would say, we're in a less than perfect space, and that there is likely to be additional demand, but I think we'll continue to just work on that outreach to make sure that we do manage to engage with as many residents as possible.
Thank you. And obviously that's the key thing, and we are making a difference in this area. So thank you to your team for doing that.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Mott, please.
Thank you, Leader. Throughout the report you refer to system-built properties. Are we able to identify whether they are rental or owned? And if owned, is there anything that we can do to encourage the owners, or sorry, I should have got that the other way around. If they're rental, is there anything that we can do to encourage the owners to improve the properties rather than keep them going as they are?
Thank you, Councillor Mott. So I can probably pick up the first part of that question. In terms of the second part of that question, that's probably, I would suggest that's maybe a environmental health objective. So yes, we do. We have an incredibly detailed data set, and we do have the information to that level. So what I suggest we do is we build on some of the work that we've already been doing with environmental health colleagues to just pick up on that point and see what else we can do to help people who could, have their properties improved or the properties that they live in improved.
I think that would be really helpful, thank you.
I was also going to ask if Mr. Brooke is able to answer, but I completely understand if you're not. The Chief Exec mentioned your name. I'm not taking the blame.
Thank you, Leader. I fear you are trying to catch me out, which you have successfully done.
That's absolutely fine, because we didn't think you could, but the Chief Exec expressed you might. But I would just like to say that actually, before I bring in the portfolio holder, that I think it's an area where, particularly for your ward, Councillor Mott, those people who live in really rural wards, you tend to know the owners of the houses, the landlords, etc. And, there is the HUG scheme that we're doing through environmental health. I'll get you off the hook, Mr. Brooke. That we are operating through the system. And we can always recommend people, and to tame our energy, we can put people forward, they can go out and view the properties, etc. So there are systems there that we can link into. I think the work that has been done on this paper is absolutely incredible. So thank you, Councillor Elliott, and to Mrs Hotchkiss and your team. I think it's, as they would say, a preemptive strike. And if we could get the payments out to those people listed before you advertise it, because otherwise they might start applying. And I wouldn't like us to, you know, have an increased workload for no reason. So I think if we get it out a good clear week that they've received the payment and then we advertise, and hopefully we won't get too many crossovers. Councillor Elliott, you'd like to speak?
So I was just hoping to shed a little bit of light on the system-built properties. So these have been identified by our environmental health colleagues as being the ones that are most difficult to upgrade. So that's why we've identified these 99 households where they've got an EPC rating of F or G. So we know these people are going to really struggle and whether to meet heating bills, because it's really difficult to insulate these properties. And in terms of the home upgrade grants, which also dovetails with the work that we're doing to support people on low incomes, it's not possible to upgrade these system-built properties. No. So in a way, whether they're owned or rented is immaterial. The point is that the people who are living in them would probably rather not be living in them. But given the housing crisis, we need to support them, even though it's a sort of sticking plaster rather than a systemic way of supporting them. But also just to close by saying, you know, this is a really good piece of work that's been done by the officer team here. But I think this is also an exemplar of how we can use data really well across the council, and we're becoming a little bit more aware of what we can do and how we could support the residents who are most vulnerable and most need our support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And please pass on our thanks to your team, Ms. Hotchkiss. Right, there are a lot of recommendations that are up on the screen. They're 1 to 7. I don't propose reading them out. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Any debate from anyone or further comments? Councillor Edmonds, are you all okay with this? Because yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Daniel, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say I'm really glad that we've got a cost of living and financial support officer in post for West Devon, because I found the previous person very, very useful as someone to refer residents and was extremely helpful. So thank you for that.
Thank you for that, Councillor Daniel. Right, all those to a vote then, please. All in favour?
That's unanimous for those 7 recommendations. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. Right, no swapping of seats now. She's been there keeping hers warm. Mrs. Buckle, welcome to the meeting. Right, this is the medium-term what are you laughing at? This is medium-term financial strategy from 25 to 26 to 27 to 28. There are several recommendations, and Mrs. Buckle, would you like to present, please? Or is that?
Thank you.
Councillor Edmonds? No, it's.
No, sorry, we've done the debt report. We weren't done.
No, we haven't got that far yet.
Next.
Just on page 61.
Thank you,
Right.
Doctor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so this is our strategic document, the medium-term financial strategy that projects the council's finances forward for the next 3 financial years. So we're looking at the budget setting process for 2025-26 and predicts forward also up until 2027-28. So on page 62 of the agenda, it shows that in terms of our budget gap for 25-26, we're currently predicting that to be about 257,000. That's 2.6% of our projected net budget for next year of 9.97 million. Looking forward into the 2 financial years following that, and these are the 2 financial years where we are expecting some major local government reforms. So in 2026, the budget gap is, the new budget gap is predicted to be just over 600,000, and for 27-28, 486,000. There are a lot of uncertainties at the moment about the level of local government funding for 25-26, and we don't yet have any detailed local government funding levels for next year. We are expecting the draft finance settlement to come out from the government normally just before Christmas, so we're hoping for that as soon as possible. And we do think that perhaps in early December, there may be a sort of principles report coming out from government that may give some idea about some of the principles that will be part of the finance settlement for 25-26. So, for example, the government may confirm the council tax referendum principles that they are looking for 25-26. We would hope that the government will confirm that new homes bonus will remain for 1 more year. We think it will be because the data is being collected by government in the normal way. So we think that means that there will be at least 1 more year of new homes bonus funding. And then 26-27, that's when we think there will be some much more fundamental local government finance reviews along the fair funding review. We're expecting the business rate baseline reset to happen. And that's why you see a bigger budget gap in those financial years, particularly 26-27. Members will see it as part of the recommendations. There is a recommendation that we continue to be part of the Devon business rate pool for 2025-26. And I would recommend that to the council because we are still projecting a pooling gain for 25-26 of about 185,000. So it's a significant amount of gain that we get from being part of the Devon-wide pool. And that's something we've done right since local government business rates was localised back in 2013. And being part of the pool has stood us in good stead in previous financial years. So looking forward in terms of timetable, we've got an all-member budget briefing on the 3rd of December. So whether we will have any further financial information from the government by then, we would hope there may be some principles that have been announced by then. And then on the 14th of January, draft budget proposals would normally go to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee and then back to the Hub Committee on the 28th of January with the full council meeting to set the final budget proposals on the 18th of February. Looking forward into pages 75 and 76, we've got a list there of all of the cost pressures for next year. Transfers to and from reserves, and also a list of savings and income generation. And in particular, heads of service have put forward their efficiency savings, which are listed there on page 76, with regards to how they would propose to meet efficiencies within their services for next year. And then on page 77, you can see there that we have done some modelling around possible council tax increases. So, for example, the current bandy council tax for the Borough Council is £261.59. If the current increases of 2.99% still hold true for next year, then that would be £269.41 in terms of that modelling, which is shown there. And we also make an assumption about how many extra houses we will have in the tax base. And we normally predict that that will go up by about 300 houses per annum. In Appendix C, we just set out things like core spending power. So when there are any government announcements around the local government finance settlement, that is the terminology that will be used by government. They will always talk about CSP, core spending power, and things like council tax business rates and new homes bonus all make up those figures. And then on page 80, we just set out there the modelling for council tax. So a 1% increase in council tax would generate £55,000 of extra council tax income. And on page 81, you can see how an average council tax bill for 24-25 was £2,457. And you can see that the lion's share of that goes to Devon County Council, with 11% actually coming to the Borough Council. Thank you very much, Leader.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Buckle. That's very informative as ever. Does anyone have any questions for Mrs. Buckle, please? Well, that was easy. That was obviously clearly well explained, Mrs. Buckle. Right, so, okay, I will move the motion. Is anybody happy to second?
Happy to second, Leader.
Thank you very much. Any debate, anybody? Well, I look forward to seeing you all on the budget finance setting meeting that we're having on the 3rd of December. And then hopefully people may have more questions then, or we may even be in a better position, who knows? Actually, it could be worse with the papers coming out at the moment. So yes, thank you very much indeed for that, Lisa. Thank you. Oh, all those in favour, sorry, forgot that bit.
That is unanimous. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. White.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, I didn't say any of that with the microphone. Those online, I've just asked Councillor Edmonds if he'd like to present his write-off report to the meeting. Councillor Edmonds, please.
Thank you, Chair, and apologies for having to leave the meeting. The report outlines the debt collection and write-off activities covering the period from April to September 2024. The Section 151 officer has delegated authority to write off debts under £5,000, while debts above this amount require Hub Committee approval. In round figures, a total of £113,000 is to be written off primarily due to insolvency cases, deceased debtors and untraceable accounts. The amount written off for the same period last year was £130,000. For individual council tax debts exceeding £5,000, detailed in Appendix A, most write-offs involve personal insolvency or individual voluntary arrangements. The council achieved a high council tax collection rate of 98.3% in 2023-24. That was above the national average of 95.9% and placing West Devon Borough Council in the top quartile of districts. Non-domestic rate write-offs under £5,000 totaled £29,500, with the primary cause being older uncollectible debt, a clean-up exercise. Business rate individual debts above £5,000, also listed in Appendix A, include cases related to bankruptcy or uncollectible historic debt. The 2023-24 collection rate of 97.8% aligned with the national average for Shire districts, though it was affected by a large unpaid balance of £128,000. Recovery action is in respect of this debt is ongoing, and had this liability been collected in full, the collection rate is estimated to have been 99% again for 2023-24. A total of £6,800 in housing benefit overpayments was written off, an increase compared to the previous year, and again mainly due to insolvency. The Hub Committee is recommended to approve the write-offs of individual debts over £5,000 and acknowledge the write-offs under £5,000 that were approved under delegated powers. The report highlights the importance of efficient debt collection practices, reserving resources for cases with realistic recovery prospects. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Councillor Edmonds. Does anybody have any questions for the finance team? You're awfully shy of questions today, everyone. Councillor Elliott.
So this is just for some further information if you have it. So as I understand it, although we're writing off these debts because we need to, we're still pursuing them. And I don't know from previous experience whether we have any sense of what percentage we might be likely to recover.
Hotchkiss, are you taking that one?
Yes, I'm happy to take that question. I mean, just in terms of collection rates, from memory, having only been here for 2 years now, we've kind of always achieved around the low 98% mark for council tax. So, you know, sort of probably in the region of about 1.7% potentially may get written off. However, the council does have a bad debt provision, and I don't know if the Section 151 officer would like to just come in to explain that point.
Thank you, Jenny. Yes, in terms of our bad debt provision, we've provided, it's around about 63% of all of our debts for council tax and also for business rates. And the way we do that is we look at an age profile of debt. So anything that is 4 years or older, we make a bad debt provision for 100%. If it's between 3 years and 4 years, we provide for 65%. The year before that, 30%, and if it's between 1 and 2 years old, we provide for 10% of that. So when a debt is written off, if that ratepayer, for example, were getting a dividend on their debt, that is written back onto the system. So I think within the report, we do give a figure of what has been written back off in the period. But like I say, as Mrs. Hodgkiss has described, we do provide for a bad debt provision as well. So we make a provision for those debts. So with many of these cases, we will be writing them out of the arrears system, also writing them out of the bad debt provision. So it's coming off both sides of the balance sheet, if you like. Thank you, Leader.
Councillor Renders, please.
Just following on Councillor Elliott's remark there, and question, just a quick question. And when we write the debts off, what do we do with them? Do we then pass them on to further agencies, or do we just do the collections ourselves? I'm only curious on that one.
So we have a variety of enforcement remedies that we can undertake, including instruction enforcement agents to collect the debt, attachment of earnings orders, attachment of benefit orders, or we could make an arrangement with somebody. So all of those processes are internal. If we've got to the end of the road with those, it's a case of we wouldn't pass that debt to outside agencies because we have all those powers ourselves. But if we have got to the end of the road, it's kind of a case of that we don't really have any alternative enforcement remedies other than to write the debt off. What we do as well, though, is we regularly revisit the ones that we've written off because people have gone away, we can't trace them. Quite often they reappear, and in the event that we've written the debt off and they do reappear, we can write the debt back on and seek to start recovering it again.
Thank you. No, it only prompted me because I was surprised to see that the banks have gone back to using external debt collectors for some of their older written-off debt, and I was just surprised because I didn't think they were going to go down there because it gave them quite a bad reputation the last time they went down that route. So pleased to see that.
Any other questions from anybody? No? Right, the recommendations are on the screen. I'll propose, Councillor Edmonds, you'd like to second?
Yes,
Or propose,
thank you, Chair.
Whichever way round.
Well, yeah, I'll move the recommendations,
And I'll
page
second you
41.
then.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any comments, debate they would like to make, please? Councillor Renders.
Just a normal comment I make every year of how good the figures really are when you think about it. If you take it as an overall figure, that it never ceases to amaze me. I always think it'd be a lot lower, the collection rate. So the fact that it's 98% or up to, it's worth commending.
It is, and it's very consistent, our figure, isn't it now? Very high. Right, all those in favour, please.
That's unanimous. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Mrs Hodgkiss. Mrs Buckle, are you running away or have you still got to stay? You're staying. We have a Mr Molyneux now. Right, if we move to page 109 of the agenda, and Councillor Moody.
Thank you, Chair. Everybody sitting comfortably? Yeah. I would just like to introduce this report about our waste, service provision. Waste and recycling service was outsourced, as members will know, 20 plus years ago with FCC. And currently, we're under an 8-year contract since 2019. And I'm pleased to say that West Devon is compliant with the Environment Aid Act 2021. We are ahead of the curve. We're ahead of the legislation. We've had a very high value service for the last 12 months with very few miscollections. 80 per 100,000. That is absolutely fantastic. The garden waste service is very successful with 7,696 subscriptions, and even some properties have multiple subscriptions as well, which is quite interesting. The recycling rate has stabilised at about 52%. And we are targeting, officers are targeting campaigns we're doing extra livery on our vehicles, and we are holding a campaign to boost recycling rates and reduce waste completely. The one thing that I still, and it's not included in this report, it is food waste in black sacks. Currently it's almost a quarter of black sacks, and that's something I would love to see as the lead member for waste to have reduced. The initiatives to improve our recycling rates, as I say, we've got road shows and national events during Recycling Week. We're also focusing on social media campaigns and door-to-door engagement in areas with low recycling participation. I've mentioned the black sacks with the food waste. An upcoming requirement of the Environmental Act in 2021. By 2026, we, as I say, we're ahead of the legislation, but plastic film and bags will be required to be curbside collected from March 2027. The other key legislative challenges ahead are extended producer responsibility. The government has been collecting, this is large packaging of producers, they must fund collection, sorting and recycling or contribute towards the recycling of packaging waste. The government has been collecting data for a number of years now, so they have a good picture of what is happening within that area. And also the deposit return scheme, which is planned for October 2027. And that will incentivise people recycling their plastic bottles and glass bottles, etc. As I said, the budget implications, the garden waste exceeds target, so we're reaching £374,000 a year. And we've exceeded our target by £14,000. There's been a slight cost increase of about £30,000 due to inflation, totaling about 1% of our budget on our waste collection. We're predicting a shortfall in recycling sales of 26,000 and additional waste equipment costs of 35,000. But the proposal is for a fees review for litter bin, for waste, controlled waste, bulky waste and garden waste collections to support our financial resilience. They are included in the recommendations there at the moment. And the first recommendation is to recognise the consistently good performance of the waste and recycling service at West Devon. And number two, to delegate authority to the Director of Customer Services and Delivery to review fees and charges in consultation with the Section 151 officer, leader and lead member for waste and recycling services. So if you have any questions, please ask me, or if I don't know the answer, Mr. Molyneux will be able to help me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Moody. I know, why do we always get a frog in our throats when we need to speak? One of those things of life. I've got a question. On the bottom of page 114, well, on page 5.1, we've got there are additional equipment costs for waste of 35,000 and additional costs for the garden waste service of 40,000. So could somebody explain what the additional cost is for garden waste, please? Mr. Molyneux.
Thank you, Leader. I've got the real technical experts behind me. So, the additional cost for garden waste is the cost of FCC running the service in reality. So their costs have risen over the years, and whilst our income is slightly higher, it's not outstripping the costs of running the service. So that's the bulk of it.
Right, okay.
And the additional equipment costs are plant hire. So we have a forklift and we have, I always forget the term, the Manitou, sorry? Telehandler, that's what they call it. And that's the big thing that scoops all the waste up for when it gets transported away. So we deposit it at Haydown, telehandler and the forklift truck pick up the food waste containers, they pick up all of the recycling materials, put it into the haulage, and they are in effect additional equipment costs, and they get battering basically. So
that's absolutely fine, thank you for that. Does anybody else have any questions? I can see it. Anyone from the hub? Councillor West, and then Councillor Daniel, I'll come to you.
am I right in thinking that garden waste charges went up last year? Garden waste charges did go up last year, but I would say that West Devon is still significantly lower than most of our neighbouring authorities. Have we any idea how much we've particularly increased? 1%, 1.5%, something like that? So we increased the charges to...
I think we went to
£52 per year.
For £1 a week.
And I know North Devon are charging £60 for their collection, and the other Devon authorities are varying degrees in that £50 bracket.
Do we have, I assume, did we have a fall off in numbers wanting the service, or did they stay constant or go up from last year?
We've had a slight increase, but nothing significant. And actually, whilst we do okay, I would say our numbers are quite low in comparison to some of our neighbouring authorities.
Thank you.
Councillor Daniel, before I come to you, does anyone know how to operate the thermostat? It's freezing cold in here. No? Okay. Well, that answered that. Councillor Daniel, please.
Thank you, Chair. Well, you mentioned Haydown, and I'm just wondering if there is an update as to what the situation is with Haydown.
That won't be discussed in this meeting, Councillor Daniel.
Okay, thank you. And also the gum collection machine that we had.
Oh,
what's happened with that?
Thank you, Lynn. So officers went out last week with Councillor Moody, Tavistock Town Council, NFCC and locality officers, trialling the new chewing gum removal equipment that we've got. It went really well, really successful. We've had quite a lot of interest from the public and also from local news asking us to kind of run a story on what we're doing with it. We've also been using it to clear up some of the old COVID stickers that were left on the floor and some graffiti as well. So I think we were actually all really surprised by how effective it was. And we have had some interest from Tidy Tavy and other community groups and also utilising the equipment to clean up their areas. So overall, I think it's gone really well.
That's very good news.
Can I just add to that, that when we first went out there, the chewing gum, no trouble at all. We thought, oh, that's nice. Then we thought, let's put it to the test. And those large sticky labels that we put down through COVID, we thought, will this work or will it not? Within 30 seconds of applying the chemical to the top, which is an eco-chemical, they just peeled off. It was absolutely incredible. And it's also very effective for removing graffiti as well. So it's a good bit of kit.
May I just ask, is that our bit of kit or are we having to transport it between here and South Hams?
We did a combined application, so South Hams have 2 units and West Devon have their own 2 units.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. Right, that's questions done. So, Councillor Moody, would you like to put forward your recommendations, please?
Thank you, Leader. As I said before, the recommendations are that the Hub Committee recognises the consistent good performance of the Waste and Recycling Service and delegates authority to the Director of Customer Service and Delivery to review fees and charges in consultation with the Section 151 officer, the lead and the lead member for Waste and Recycling Services. Do I have a second?
Happy to second.
Okay. Anybody comment, debate, please? Councillor Jury, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Moody, for the update. I know it's really, really important that the fees and charges are reviewed, but I think the most important part of this is recognising the good performance. And I know from my own experience, the teams come through our village, and when they do, those guys and girls are running and they do an exceptional job. They're always cheerful and happy if you talk to them, even when it's raining. I think as a service, I think we've got an excellent service. Yes, it does go wrong on occasions, or on those occasions, it's one of those hygiene factors, isn't it, that people like to complain about. But I think generally we've got really good service, and I think if we can pass our thanks back to the team, that would be much appreciated from my perspective.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jory. I will forward your comments. Thank you.
Just in light of your comments, Councillor Jury, I was asking if it's possible, if we can feed back those comments to FCC, because they do need the pat on the shoulders, the pat on the head, to say thank you for our good figures, because they do work hard And as Councillor Jury said, they're always running around, a smile on their faces, and happy to talk. And it does feel as a council, it's very difficult to sort of say, we'll just say thank you to them. But Mr. Molyneux.
So, Leader, we met with FCC only last week. We meet with them on a quarterly basis now and review their performance. And we minute that meeting, and in those minutes of that meeting, officers congratulated FCC on what is exemplary performance in reality. So it far exceeds the national targets, the national benchmark. So they're doing a really good job.
If you could pass on the thanks of the councillors, because that is important. It's, you know, it's great that you guys do, but actually it's us councillors on the ground. You know, think of the complaints we would all get as members if it wasn't the service it is. You know, we would be inundated because people do like to complain about such subjects.
So Leader, I will write to the Senior Operations Manager to pass on the thanks. But Councillor Moody is at the Haydown depot tomorrow, and he'll be able to pass on these thanks from councillors to the FCC staff that are there.
Please do that, Councillor Moody. It'd be really appreciated. And if you could to the ones in the office up above the guys on the ground. Thank you. We've done all those in favour, haven't we? No? Did you want to ask a question? Oh, okay. Okay, all in favour, please.
That is unanimous. Thank you, Leader.
Right, could I move this meeting into part 2, please, with the exclusions of the press and public? And if we could sort the computers out, please, Mr. Gardner, which I think he's on the case now. Oh, could I'll propose, could I have a seconder?
Happy to second.
And all those in favour of moving into part 2, thank you very much.
Carried for part 2. Thank you, Leader.
You're back in. I'll give you time to get back then.
Come on.
Right, you there, Steve? Okay, thank you very much, members, for attending the meeting today and for the officers. Enjoy your visit to Haydown tomorrow, Councillor Moody. You've got a pasty. I hope you've got some tatty boots to wear. Yes, yes. Okay then, thank you very much, everybody. I close the meeting at 4:25 p.m.